What's going on, you guys? It's your boy Sodium285 and welcome to a different type of video. The time has come. Today I will be sharing the first 4 chapters of my prologue to my Sword and Shield anime rewrite. Now, when I initially conceived this story, it was initially supposed to be just a one-off advanced shipping story because I wanted to try my hand at writing an advanced shipping story. But then, when I decided to keep most of Sun and Moon in canon, I thought, this could actually lead to my own version of the Gen 8 anime. Creating our own alternate scenarios on what would the anime Pokemon journey be like is a fun thing to do across various different medias. This is just to have a bit of fun and to give Ash his own journey in Galar and my take on it. That's all it's meant to be, nor is it meant to be a jab at journeys or say Sakutoshi's own version of Sword and Shield. I don't hate journeys, and I love Sakutoshi's Sword and Shield anime series, so I highly recommend that work as well as a lot of other works on their own version of the Gen 8 anime exploring the Galar region. I give a thumbs up to all of you and a round of applause. With all that said, remember this is an advanced shipping story, hence why I had made the previous video beforehand so that you can understand why I love advanced shipping. And like I said, this was initially conceived to be just a one-off advanced shipping story, and it will remain that way, just kind of a setup for what is to come later. So sit back, relax, and hopefully enjoy the story of I Sacrifice My Happiness for You. Chapter 1: Revelations and Hidden Truths. Normally, May would have been ecstatic about the idea of moving to another region, as, while she had a very close bond with her parents and her younger brother Max, she loved exploring new places, especially other regions. But she was not this time, as she would be moving to a life of abuse, sorrow, and regret. She was to move to the Unova region in 3 days, and she was dreading that day, for she was to move in and start a relationship with Trip, a Pokémon trainer from Unova, but she didn't want to. She didn't love him. In fact, she felt nothing but disgust towards his egotistical attitude, often reminding her of how her rivals Drew and Harley used to treat her. She had only reluctantly agreed to move in with him out of desperation and fear. Trip was a rival Ash, a Pokémon trainer from the Kanto region, who May had traveled with alongside Ash's best friend Brock and Max through her home, the Hoenn region, and the Kanto battle frontier, had met throughout his travels in Unova. Ash had beaten Trip in the first round match of the Alola League, leaving Trip bitter at Ash and vowed revenge on him. One day, Trip had shown up at the Petalburg gym to challenge her father, the gym leader, to a gym battle. During that time, he had faked flirted with May, which really annoyed her, and he eventually revealed to her who he was and his backstory, even revealing he knew that she used to travel with Ash, demanding she comes back to Unova with him and date him, or Ash would suffer. While he had challenged her father to a gym battle, Trip had made this demand to him if he won. Her father had initially refused, but May, in desperation to protect Ash from Trip's wrath, reluctantly pleaded with her father to accept Trip's demands, even if she hated the idea of dating Trip. Norman had tried his best to beat him, but in the end, Trip had won. Ash was the guy May was truly in love with. Throughout their journey in Hoenn and Kanto, their bond had grown to having such a strong friendship, and she had developed strong feelings for him, those feelings being love. She had never confessed them to Ash because she didn't want to come between him and his goal of becoming a Pokemon master. Somehow, Trip had discovered her feelings for Ash and had decided to use her as part of his revenge on Ash for his defeat in the Unova League. Trip had threatened to hurt Ash and all of his Pokemon, that he would hunt them all down non-stop if May didn't agree to move to Unova and be in a relationship with him. and neither Ash nor May could stop him because all of their Pokémon had mysteriously disappeared a couple of weeks beforehand. He had also gotten his superior to watch May all the time, and to torture her if she revealed his plans to anyone, even potentially torturing and hurting anyone she tried to tell. May thought there was no stopping Trip, and wouldn't be able to live with herself if anything happened to Ash or any of his beloved Pokémon, especially his loyal Pikachu. So she had only agreed to date Trip to protect Ash and his trusty Pokémon. She'd do anything to protect Ash, even if it meant sacrificing her own happiness. And now she had no one to talk to about what was really going on. From Superior watching her all the time, preventing her from talking about it with any of her friends or family, to her Pokémon being missing, meaning she's unable to talk to her loyal Glaceon, Blaziken, or any of the others. Suddenly, Max burst into her room and exclaimed, "May, I can't let you do this." May turned around to face her brother. "Max, please, stay out of this." "I won't!" Max exclaimed. "You're my sister. I can tell you don't love Trip, and I know Ash is the one you really love." May looked at her brother, shocked that he had figured out her feelings for Ash. Maybe he had seen them all along, but she'd have to worry about that later. She needed to keep her brother safe from Superior. "Max, this is something I have to do," she retorted. "Why? Is Trip making you date him?" came another voice. It was Brock, who had just entered the room too. Two other people followed behind him. Misty, the Cerulean gym leader, who had traveled with Ash and Brock through the Kanto and Johto regions, and Dawn, a coordinator Ash and Brock had traveled with through the Sinnoh region, along with her Piplup. May had met Misty when Misty had come with her Togepi to Hoenn for what had turned out to be a fake Togepi festival, and had met Dawn when she had come to Sinnoh to visit Ash and Brock and compete in the Wallace Cup. "May, we've all seen how much you love Ash," Dawn said, "and trust me, we've all noticed he has the same feelings for you. So why do you feel you have to date his nastiest rival?" Superior went to try and grab Dawn, only for Piplup to step in and defend its trainer. A small fight pursued between the two Pokémon. While they collided, the five friends continued talking, with May being taken aback by what Dawn had said about Ash having the same feelings for her. "May, you're making a big mistake," Brock said. "You love Ash. We can all see that. He's the one you should be with." "Believe me, Brock, I know I'm making a mistake," May told him, "and I don't want to do this." "Then why?" Misty pleaded. "You and Ash clearly love each other, and Trip's trying to destroy that. Why do you feel you have to go with him?" Superior shook off Piplup and tried to grab Misty and Brock. Just then, a Drapion appeared and used Pin Missile on Superior, sending it flying far away out the open window. May, Brock, Dawn, Max, and Misty turned around to see who had summoned that Drapion. It was Paul, Ash's rival from Sinnoh, as both Brock and Dawn had recognized him. While May hadn't met Paul before now, Ash had told her all about him when she had visited in Sinnoh, and had told him more about Paul after the Sinnoh League, how Paul used to be cold towards his own Pokémon, only wanting them for their power, even going as far as to abandon his Chimchar, who Ash had then taken in, and, after Chimchar had evolved into Infernape, it and Ash showed Paul by defeating him and his Electivire at the Sinnoh League. After that, Paul began showing his Pokémon and Ash more respect, the two developing a respectful friendship. "Now that you no longer have that pathetic Superior watching you all the time," said Paul, "you're free to tell them that the only reason you had agreed to date Trip was to protect Ash." "Protect Ash?" Brock, Dawn, Max, and Misty all asked, puzzled by what Paul meant. May hesitated for a moment, afraid of what would happen if she revealed the truth. But Paul was right. Superior was out of the way, so maybe she could finally let them in. Once Paul had recalled his Drapion, May took a deep breath and started explaining. "Paul's saying the truth," May began. "Trip had threatened to harm Ash and all his Pokémon if I don't move to Unova and date him, claiming he'd hunt them down across the world if he had to. And neither Ash nor I had any of our Pokémon around us, nor do our parents nor Professor Oak, since they've all mysteriously disappeared, so it's not like I could stop him or ask for Ash's help, especially since every Officer Jenny across Kanto and Hoenn have been unable to find them, and Superior was in charge of keeping an eye on me to ensure I don't reveal his plans, and to harm anyone who dared to interfere. Hence why it went after your Piplup, Dawn, as well as Brock and Misty. May broke down into tears as she blurted everything out. Max gave his sister a hug, while Brock, Dawn, and Misty put a hand on each of her shoulders. "I'm really sorry that you had to go through all that, May," Brock said, comforting his friend. "Me too," Dawn added. "Sacrificing your own happiness for the rest of your life to protect the guy you love must not be easy." "But it still doesn't explain why Trip was determined to date you, May," Misty asked, confused. "He's just using me," May answered. "To get his revenge on Ash," Paul chimed in. Brock, Dawn, Max, and Misty looked up at Paul and retorted at the same time. "Revenge?" "You see, Gary and I were hanging out at the Pokémon Center last night. You know, as some of the toughest rivals Ash has ever had, we wanted to get to know each other better," Paul explained. However, Trip was on a phone call from Unova with some weird, long-haired guy dressed like a cacturn who was at the center too. I think he said his name was Harley. There was also a girl on the phone who we don't know. She was also part of the same phone call. They had formed an alliance, as they all felt bitter towards Ash and May. The girl felt strangely bitter towards the latter because apparently she had a crush on Ash and had even confessed those feelings to him, but Ash didn't return them. Harley apparently wanted revenge on May for defeating him in both the Hoenn and Kanto Grand Festivals. Meanwhile, Trip wanted revenge on Ash for defeating him in the first round of the Unova League. So they were talking about how well their plan was going. It was because of Harley the other two had found out that Ash has feelings for May and vice versa, which made the girl really have a vendetta against you, May. They had decided to hire some members of Team Rocket to capture all of Ash and May's Pokémon. "Thank you, Paul," said Brock, "for telling us all this. I knew Harley likes trying to ruin me, but I never thought he'd go this far," May exclaimed. "I can't believe he'd team up with Trip to orchestrate all this." She began to feel anger grow within her. "What about the girl, Paul?" Max asked. "What did she look like?" "She had blonde hair, wore a red top hat, and had a fire-type Pokemon called Braixen, which Gary and I had to look up, since neither of us had ever seen one before. I think she had at one point during the conversation mentioned she had an Eevee that had then evolved into a Sylveon," Paul explained. May's eyes widened. "That must be Serena." Paul's face went puzzled. "Serena?" "Serena was one of Ash's traveling companions when he had journeyed through the Kalos region," Brock explained. "Ash had mentioned her to me when he had returned home from the Kalos League, as well as how she had feelings for him, but he saw her as nothing more than a great friend." "He had mentioned all that to me too," said May. "When he had talked to me after his travels in Kalos, he had told me about the new friends he had met there and in Unova. Dawn and Misty said how Ash had told them about Serena and his other new friends from Unova and Kalos too." "Some great friend she is," Max said angrily, "teaming up with Ash's meanest rival and my sister's own, all because she couldn't accept that Ash didn't have the same feelings towards her that she did towards him. And being part of the orchestration of the kidnapping of every one of their Pokémon? That's going too far," Misty exclaimed. "That gives me an idea," Dawn announced. Everyone else looked at her, curious at what her plan might be. "I say we head for the Kalos region. Every officer Jenny in Kanto and Hoenn hasn't found a single trace of any of Ash's or May's Pokémon in either of them. And Professor Rowan has recently confirmed no such luck in Sinnoh either. I think Professor Elm had recently confirmed the same results in Johto, right?" "Right," confirmed Misty. "But now that we know Serena's behind all this, she could have hidden them in the Kalos region. So I'd say we look for them there," Don suggested. "Not to mention, it will be a good opportunity to give that girl a piece of my mind." "Hold on, Don," Brock interrupted. "We haven't checked the Unova region either. Trip's behind their kidnapping too. They could be there instead of in Kalos." Brock's got a point, Max agreed. "Then how about we split up and look for them in both regions?" Don asked. "That's a good idea," said Paul. "I'll look in Unova, and I'll let Gary know of our plan. And when I encounter Trip, I'd certainly like to give him a little talk, rival to rival." "I'll go to Kalos with you, Dawn," said Misty. "I'd also like to give Serena a piece of my mind." I better go with you two before you get carried away with your own revenges on Ash and May's behalf, and end up doing something you'll both later regret, Max said to Don and Misty. I'll go with you, Paul, said Brock. You might need help. I'll go to Kalos, May said. Someone needs to find mine and Ash's Pokemon while you guys are busy dealing with Serena and Trip. And if they're not there, I'll search in Unova. But now that I have a lead, I can go looking for them myself. It's the least I can do. Then it's settled, said Brock. So the gang started heading for their next destinations. Brock and Paul boarded the boat for Unova, while May, Dawn, Max, and Misty boarded the one for Kalos. Chapter 2. Did I actually win her heart? Ash lied on the grass in the park of Petalburg City. He looked up to the sky sadly, thinking about everything that had just happened. It was like his whole world was falling apart. All of his Pokemon had mysteriously gone missing, including his trustworthy Pikachu, who had always been by his side since his first day as a Pokemon trainer. He had heard the same had happened to all of May's Pokemon too, and now every Officer Jenny in the Kanto, Johto, Hoenn, Sinnoh, and Alola regions have failed to find any of them, with Professors Oak, Elm, Birch, Rowan, and Kukui confirming this. And now, May was about to move to Unova to start a relationship with Trip, his rival from that region, in 3 days. Ash wished he was at the very least happy for May, as he wanted her to be so, but he could tell she was unhappy to be dating Trip, so he couldn't understand why she was doing this. He suspected Trip may be forcing her to, with his superior watching her all the time, and without any of his Pokemon like Pikachu, Infernape, Sceptile, Gliscor, Bulbasaur, Swellow, Crocodile, Talonflame, and so on, Ash believed he couldn't stop Trip. The truth was that Ash himself was in love with May. When they had traveled together, their friendship had grown to be a strong and unbreakable bond, and it was throughout their journey together where his feelings for her eventually developed into love. However, Ash had been reluctant to admit these feelings to May herself, as he didn't want to come between her and her dream of exploring the world and becoming a top coordinator, and tried to dismiss them as a one-time crush. However, since then, as he had traveled through Sinnoh, Unova, Kalos, and Alola, he was unable to shake off his feelings for her, despite having made other great friends in those regions. At first, he thought he'd fall for Dawn, having formed a strong bond with her as well, not to mention how both Kenny and Conway, quite obviously, saw him as a romantic rival for her. But he had soon realized even his strong bond with Dawn didn't outclass that he had with May in his heart. Same with Lily. Ash had a great friendship with her, but his bond with her didn't exceed that with May. While Iris was another great friend of Ash, his friendship with her was similar to that he had with Misty. He felt the same for Serena, Mallow, and Lana that he did for Misty, Dawn, Iris, and Lily. They were great friends, but he never considered them as anything more. It eventually became clear to him that his feelings for May were much more than a one-time thing. It was love. He thought back to Serena for a minute, remembering how she had kissed him before she had left him, Clement, and Bonnie to go to Hoenn, revealing her feelings for him. Even after that, Ash saw Serena as just a great friend, and never thought of her as anything more, so he never returned those feelings she had for him. He began wondering if he had hurt her for not having romantic feelings for her. But besides, he already had romantic feelings for May, and he still did. Too bad they didn't matter now, as he was about to lose May to Trip in 3 days. And the worst part was, he could tell May was miserable about the whole situation, and didn't want to spend the rest of her life with Trip. He wished he could stop him, and save May from a potential life of misery, but he felt powerless without any of his Pokemon by his side. "Penny for your thoughts, Ash?" asked a voice from behind him. It was Norman, Mayor Max's father, and the Petalburg gym leader. He sat down next to Ash. "Just thinking about where all of my Pokemon and all of your daughters could have disappeared to," Ash answered. "It just feels like they've disappeared off the face of the planet. There's no sign of them anywhere either back home in Kanto, back in Alola, or back in Hoenn. Dawn has confirmed that nobody's been able to find them anywhere in Sinnoh, and Professor Elm has just told me they haven't been located anywhere in Johto either." "I know, and I'm really sorry," said Norman. He put a comforting hand on Ash's shoulder. "I wish I could have helped more." You've done everything you can, Norman, Ash retorted, and I appreciate you trying. But it's not just their disappearance that's on your mind, is it? Norman asked. You're worried about my daughter, aren't you? You're in love with her, and don't approve of her being in a relationship with that Trip boy. Ash stared at Norman, shocked by what the gym leader just stated. Could he really read his mind? Were his feelings for May that obvious? How did you? He began. I was told by Max how protective you were over her when you had traveled together, and I can see the way you look at her. A stark contrast to how you look at other girls like Misty or Dawn, Norman interrupted. As well as that, you seemed more than fine with May holding your Pikachu whenever you wouldn't use it in a battle. The only other people who would sometimes hold Pikachu were Brock and Max, and even they never held Pikachu as much as she did. Plus, while Drew and Harley treated my daughter as some underdog they could abuse, either verbally or in a humiliating way, you treated her like a person. I've also figured out that May feels the same way about you. Ash's eyes widened in disbelief. May's in love with him? Like he's with her? How can you be so sure? He asked the gym leader. I've noticed the way she looks at you, which is also very different to how she looks at other guys like Drew or Harley, Norman answered. She looks at you the same way you look at her. Not to mention, remember our gym battle? One I'd never forget. While Max was cheering for me with full confidence, May was clearly torn between the two of us. Heck, it appeared she was rooting for you more than me, her own father. Ash blushed, remembering his gym battle with Norman. It was a tough battle, and May had in fact called out to him to call back Pikachu while battling Norman's Vigoroth, and when Brock had pointed out to her the weakness in their strategy, May had then said to ignore what she had said. More memories of his travels with May flooded back to him, from their time in the Garden of Grass Types, where she had met her Bulbasaur, to when they had explored the Seed Temple with the Manaphy she had temporarily adopted. The latter time, in particular, May looked very worried about him when he had risked his life for her. Looking back, Norman was right. Maybe she had been just as afraid to reveal her feelings for him as he had been regarding his for her. And trust me, Ash, I'm just as unhappy as you are about her eventually moving to Unova to be in a relationship with Trip, Norman added. If only I had managed to beat Trip in our gym battle, she wouldn't be in this situation. I just wish I knew why she had pleaded with me to accept his demands. I'm sure you and your Pokémon gave it everything you had, Norman, Ash retorted. I would have been okay with her dating Trip as long as she's happy, but she's clearly not. I want her to be happy, but she's clearly miserable and doesn't even like him. I think he's forcing her to, but I don't know why. He's just using her, Ashy boy, to get back at you, a voice called out from behind. The moment he was referred to as Ashy boy, Ash didn't even need to look behind him to know that it was Gary Oak, his childhood rival and Professor Oak's grandson, who said that. Gary? What do you mean? Trip's trying to get back at me? Ash asked, confused by the implications. Gary then explained how, when he and Paul were hanging out at the Pokemon Center the previous night, they had overheard Trip's conversation with Harley and a girl unknown to Gary, talking about how their plan to make Ash and May miserable had been working, how they were behind the disappearance of Ash and May's Pokemon, Harley wanting revenge on May for defeating him in the Hoenn and Kanto Grand festivals, Trip wanting revenge on Ash for defeating him in the Unova League, and the girl being bitter towards the two because of the girl's feelings for Ash, but he had feelings for May instead, as she had found out from Harley, and that Trip had threatened to torture Ash and all his Pokemon if May didn't agree to date him. Once Gary had described the girl's physical features and the Pokemon she owned, a Braixen and a Sylveon, Ash's eyes widened with even more disbelief. Serena! He exclaimed. He then explained to Gary and Norman how Serena had been one of his traveling companions during his journey in the Kalos region, how after the Kalos League, Serena had confessed her romantic feelings for him, but he didn't feel the same way. Hearing Serena's involvement in all of this hurt Ash a lot. Even though he didn't have the same feelings for her that he did for May, he had still thought Serena was a good friend. Now, he didn't know what to think. And now May, the girl he loved, was suffering because of Trip and Serena's bitterness towards him. Tears began falling down his face. This is all my fault, Ash stated. May's going to be miserable for the rest of her life and our Pokemon are all missing because of me. Ash, don't blame yourself, Norman retorted. As I understand it, my little girl's miserable and all of yours and her Pokemon are missing because Trip couldn't accept that you had defeated him in the Unova League fair and square, and Serena couldn't accept that you don't feel about her the way she does about you. Isn't that right, Gary? Right, Gary answered. And don't forget Harley's petty vendetta against May for defeating him in the Grand Festivals. All three of them could have gotten over their petty grudges and moved on, but they didn't. Harley, that jerk, always wanting to ruin May, Ash angrily whispered to himself under his breath. At that moment, Gary got a phone call from Paul, letting Gary know that he had informed May, Brock, Dawn, Max and Misty about Trip, Harley and Serena's involvement in all of this. Paul also told Gary that he and Brock were going to Unova to find Ash and May's Pokemon and to potentially battle Trip there, while May, Dawn, Misty and Max were heading for Kalos so that May could look there while the others potentially confront Serena. I'm going to join Paul and Brock in Unova, Gary announced. Paul and I have a lesson to teach that trip. I'll go with you, Gary, Ash retorted. We'll cover more ground that way. I'll look for mine and May's Pokemon while you, Paul and Brock deal with Trip. You don't want to give Trip a lesson for using May to get back at you, Ashy boy? Gary asked him. As angry as I am at him, Harley and Serena for all of this, May's Pokemon are still missing, as are mine. Someone needs to find them. Then go, Ash, Norman told him encouragingly. So Ash and Gary headed for the next boat to Unova. On their way there, Ash turned to Gary and said, Gary, thanks for helping me, and tell Paul I tell him thanks too. Gary smiled at his former rival. Will do. Then they boarded the boat for Unova. Chapter 3. Team Rocket helps? May, Dawn, along with her Piplup, Max and Misty, arrived in Lumio City and made their way out of the port. So where did Paul say Serena is from? Misty asked. I think he had said Vanderville Town, Max answered. Then that's where we're heading, Dawn declared. She, Piplup, Misty and Max headed for Vanderville Town, asking for directions and checking Max's Pokénav, while May stayed in Lumio City to first search for hers and Ash's missing Pokémon in every corner of the city. She was going to search for them in every corner of the Kalos region, even if it took her an entire year to do so. Are you sure about heading off by yourself, sis? Max asked. May nodded. Ash and my Pokémon and their safety are my top priority. Besides, if we all go to find Serena at once, she might keep us occupied. Splitting up is better for covering more ground. She then ran off to proceed to searching the entire city. Eventually, Dawn and Piplup, Misty and Max reached Vanderville Town. They started asking the residents around if they knew a girl called Serena, when suddenly, the four are trapped in a cage. Their captors then revealed themselves as the Team Rocket members Butch and Cassidy. You two, the friends exclaimed. Did you really think we'd let you interfere with their revenge? Cassidy remarked. So you're the Team Rocket members Serena, Trip and Harley hired to steal all of Ash and my sister's Pokémon, Max yelled at them. You're correct, young twerp, Butch answered. But before he and Cassidy could continue monologuing, they got trapped in another cage. Butch and Cassidy's captors then revealed themselves. Prepare for trouble, we're the real deal. Make it double, we've got you sealed. To protect the world from devastation, to unite all peoples within our nation, to denounce the evils of truth and love, to extend our reach to the stars above. Jesse and James, Team Rocket blasts off at the speed of light. Surrender now or prepare to fight, fight, fight. Meow! That's right! Wow, Buffhead! My! Before Butch and Cassidy could answer back, Jesse, James and Meowth pressed a button on their control and sent the cage holding Butch and Cassidy flying into the distance. They got a hold of the other remote and used it to release Dawn and Piplup, Max and Misty from their cage. As the three friends and the water type got out of their prison, they looked at Team Rocket with suspicion. You three are helping us? Max asked suspiciously. We've been trying to catch the twerp's Pikachu for a long time, and then those guys managed to catch it and the rest of his Pokemon in a couple of nights, as well as all of the Hoenn twerpettes? How dare they get there before us? Jesse exclaimed. We have a common enemy, James stated. No, we don't. You're just using us to lead you to snatching all of Ash and May's Pokémon, Misty fired back. Okay, that was our plan, Meowth confessed. Meowth! Jessie and James yelled at him. But since you've caught us red-handed, that plan is scrapped, Meowth retorted. There, Dawn exclaimed. Have a nice day. We don't have time for your stupidity. She, Piplup, Max and Misty started walking off until Team Rocket stopped them. Wait, the three crooks pleaded. We want to get even with the Colors Torped too. We overheard your conversation at the Hoenn Torped's house, as we were suspicious too, Jessie explained. Plus, unlike you three, we know where her house is, James stated. Too bad none of us trust any of you, Max retorted. And you have every reason not to, Meowth admitted. But if you let us join you in confronting the Colors Torped, we promise we won't try to snatch Pikachu or my Piplup, Dawn interrupted. Or your Piplup or any of you other Twerps' Pokemon for at least a year, Meowth continued. So, what do you all say? Do we have a deal? Max, Dawn and Misty thought for a moment. They didn't want to trust Team Rocket, but James did have a point about them not knowing exactly where Serena lived without them, and the idea of them not trying to capture Pikachu or any of their other Pokemon did sound appealing. We'll hold you to your promise, Misty told them. Alright, you can help, Dawn chimed in, but one wrong move and Piplup will send you all blasting off all the way back to your boss. Understood? Piplup then stepped in to give Jessie, James and Meowth an intimidating look, showing support for its trainer. Understood, Team Rocket answered, slightly terrified. The trio then took the lead in finding Serena's house. Chapter 4. An Old Friend. Ash, Brock, Paul and Gary arrived in November Town and made their way out of the port. Trip lives around here, guys. Try asking Professor Juniper if she knows where his house is, Ash told his friends. You're not coming with us, Ash? Brock asked his best friend. Brock, you've always been right by my side, Ash explained to him. You're the big brother I never had, and you've always had my back. But this is something I must do alone. You guys handle Trip, while I'll look for mine and May's Pokemon. That's my #1 priority right now. I'll search the entire region if I have to. Then you go do that, Paul told him. We can handle him. You do what you've got to do. Ash smiled at his former rival. Paul, I don't know how to thank you. I really thought Trip was okay with me beating him in the Alola League. I guess I was wrong. Brock, Gary and Paul smiled, and Ash made his way to explore the town to search for his and May's Pokemon. Meanwhile, Brock, Paul and Gary headed for Professor Juniper's lab, hoping to get some answers. If not, they'd ask Nurse Joy at the Pokémon Center if she knew a trainer called Trip and if she knew where he lived. When they had reached the lab, they had gotten news that Juniper was currently in the Johto region to exchange information about the Pokémon native to either Unova or Johto with Professor Elm, since Johto Pokémon tended to be rarer to the western side of Unova, so the trio made their way to the Pokémon Center. When they had stepped inside the center, Nurse Joy greeted them from her desk, only for a love-struck Brock to try and woo the lady. But his flirting didn't last long, as his Krogunk appeared out of its Pokeball to give its trainer a punishing poison jab, sending Brock down onto the floor, poisoned and unable to move. While Brock was recovering, Paul and Gary stepped forward, and Paul introduced themselves to the nurse. My name is Paul, from Veilstone City. These are my friends Brock from Pewter City and Gary from Pallet Town. As Paul said this, a girl with massive bushy hair, who was also at the center, paid close attention to what the conversation was saying. Pallet Town? Isn't that where Ash is from? And didn't Ash once say he had a friend called Brock? She whispered to herself. We're looking for a guy called Trip. Do you know where he lives? Gary continued explaining to Nurse Joy. At that moment, the girl jumped from her seat and ran up to them. I know Trip, she exclaimed. I can help you find him. Brock, Paul and Gary were startled by the girl's sudden presence next to them. I'm sorry, I'm being rude not introducing myself. My name's Iris. Iris? Brock exclaimed. Did you, by any chance, know someone called Ash Ketchum from Pallet Town? Yes, Iris squealed in response. I had traveled with him when he had come here to compete in the Unova League. He had mentioned you to me when he had written back to me after he had come back from Unova, Brock explained. I'm Brock, and Ash is my best friend. I had travelled with him in the Kanto, Johto, Hoenn and Sinnoh regions. Ash had mentioned you too, said Iris. She then turned to Gary. And I assume you two know Ash since you're also from Pallet Town? That's right, answered Gary. I'm Gary. He and I used to be huge rivals when we were younger, but now we're respectful friends. And I'm Paul, Paul chimed in. Ash and I were rivals in Sinnoh. Now we're also friends and have respect for each other. So, what brings you three to Unova? She asked them. They then explained to her everything, from Harley, Trip and Serena's plan for revenge on Ash and May, to the kidnapping of all of Ash's and May's Pokémon, to Trip threatening May to torture Ash and his Pokémon if May didn't agree to date him, to Brock, Paul and Gary coming to Unova to confront Trip, while Misty, Dawn and Max would confront Serena and Carlos. All this information shocked Iris. I remember Ash saying Trip held no grudge against him over his loss to him in the League, she retorted. He had told me the same thing, Brock said. Maybe something had happened to Trip since then? Well, Iris thought out loud. I recall him wanting to beat Alder, the former regional champion. Former? Paul asked. Who's the current champion? Iris gave him a face. You're looking at her. She then explained to them how, after traveling with Ash, she had continued to travel around different regions to meet and battle other Dragon-type trainers, eventually leading her to become the reigning champion of Unova, due to being declared the strongest trainer in the region. The four then returned their focus on Trip. Iris, being more than eager to help out, led the way to his home. Brock, Paul and Gary followed her. Follow me, she told the three foreigners. Thanks to me meeting his parents once, upon a request the champion attends some households. I know where he lives. I'll help you teach that Trip a lesson.